Mark here from Talkingbass. So after 8 years of weekly video releases, I am yet to feature any Frank Zappa. Why is that weird? Well, I'm one of the biggest Zappa fans in the world and have been pretty much obsessed with his music since I was a kid. So today I'm going to break the abstinence by giving you a breakdown of the main bass lines from the song Keep It Greasy from the Joe's Garage album. Now, any of you that know anything about Zappa's music will know that Keep It Greasy is a notoriously difficult song, mostly because of the time signatures and the insane drumming by Vinnie Colauita. But it's not just the drums that shine in this tune. The bass line, played by the amazing Arthur Barrow, is a real challenge for many different reasons. As always, the tab and drum tracks are all there over at talkingbass.net. Just click that link in the info below. Also like the video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Then also remember to check out the Talkingbass app on both iOS and Android. The app provides a more streamlined, mobile-friendly way of accessing all the bass resources over at the website, and it's also the perfect way to access your Talkingbass courses away from the desktop. Just log in with your existing Talkingbass account or sign up for free and gain access to all of the practice resources, lessons and networking features like the forums and groups. There are well over 100,000 members already signed up to Talkingbass, so check it out on iOS or Android. It's totally free with content added all the time. Okay, so the riffs we're going to look at here are the main opening or chorus riff in 4/4, the first verse, which is in 1916, the second verse in 2116, and the guitar solo section, which is again in 1916. So yup, those time signatures are going to be real good fun. Now, it's worth mentioning before I begin that some of you might wonder about my transcriptions of these riffs because they don't sound very much like other covers that you'll see online, and they might not match up with what you think that you're hearing on the original. Now, that's because in the two verse riffs, there are a whole bunch of things going off, and you can hear either another bass or a guitar playing around the same register and notes as the bass line. It could even be multi-tracking of the bass going on from time to time. However, I have spent a long time listening hard to the original, slowing it down and putting it under the musical microscope, and I think I'm pretty close. The 2116 slap line is quite well hidden under all the chaos, so you have to listen really closely, and like I said, I'm pretty confident that I'm pretty close on most of it. So first of all, let's look at the relatively straightforward opening riff. It's about 134 beats per minute and it sounds like this. So we're in the key of D minor and we have this opening pickup bar of, okay, so open A string, then C, C sharp leading into the D, so 3rd fret, 4th fret on the A string. Then we have this repeating phrase. So this is D, C and A, 5th fret, 3rd fret, A string, 5th fret on the E string. We play that three times. Okay, so it's basically 16th notes with that little anticipation before each beat. So once we played it 3 times, we hit the A there at the 5th fret of the E string. We hit that twice, then the F up there, 3rd fret of the D string twice. So all of that slowly. Then we play the same repeating phrase 3 times, but on the 3rd time we don't get down as far as the A, we just play the D and the C, and then we slide up on the G to the A there, 5th fret to the 7th fret on the D string, and finish on the G at the 5th fret. So let's put all that together. 1, 2, 3. From a From a technical standpoint, there's not that much to see here. Just start out really slowly without a click or tracks or anything like that, and then just gradually build up speed. Now, in terms of the left-hand fingering, I mean, you don't have to use many fingers at all. We can either use the pinky, fourth finger, then the first finger, and then the pinky again. So pinky, index, pinky, or you can use the ring finger for that 5th fret. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But what you will find is that when you switch over from the C to the A, when you come down onto the E string and then you come back onto the D, you're going to have to use a bit of joint barring. So you're basically using that same finger, just shifting the pressure from the E string to the A string by using that joint there. So, okay. So that's pretty much all there is there. Then in the right hand, Arthur Barrow usually plays with a pick on most of the Zappa stuff. So, you know, you could use a pick. I'm using fingerstyle here. If when you play this and you're coming down, you're probably going to want to rake across from the C down onto the A. So let's say it's the second finger, the middle finger that you're starting on there. Then you've got the first finger playing the C and then coming down onto the A. So, okay, so that's the move. Okay, so I've got 3 tracks for each of the sections over at the website. 114, 124, and 134 beats per minute. So slow, medium, and original speed. So let's try that at 114 beats per minute. Okay, now let's try 124 beats per minute. And now let's try 134 beats per minute. Okay, now let's have a look at the first verse. We're in a time signature of 1916, and it sounds like this. So, like I said, we're in 1916, and you may be wondering to yourself, what the hell does that mean? So, just as a quick break time of time signatures, the top number, the numerator, tells us how many beats there are in a bar. The bottom number, the denominator, tells us what type of beat it is. Think of time signatures like fractions. 4/4 as a fraction would be 4 quarters. So as music, we have 4 quarter notes per bar. 6/8 as a fraction would be 6/8. That will be 6/8 notes per bar. This means the most common denominators will be 2, 4, 8, and 16. 2 is going to be half notes, 4 is quarter notes, 8 is eighth notes, and 16 is 16th notes. Easy. So now back to 1916. This means that we're going to have 19 16th notes in a bar. Now a good way of looking at these 16th note meters is to think of how many 16th notes make up each regular quarter note beat, or just a regular bar of 4/4. A quarter note is worth 4 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, so 1 E and a, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them. A whole bar of 4/4 is worth 16 16th notes, hence the term 16th note. So if we have a bar of 1916, we have 3 16th notes more than a regular bar of 4/4. So just think 4/4 plus 3 16th notes, which means that we would count out a bar of 1916 as 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, and then just add the 3 on the end. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1, 2, 3. Okay? Or you could have 5E and. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 5E and. Okay? So you've just got those 3 16th notes on the end. So To make it simple, just think, there are 16 16th notes in a bar of 4/4. So for 19, we've got the 16, and then we're just adding those 3 on the end to make up 19. Now, remember, there are many ways to subdivide any time signature, including 4/4. So you're not always necessarily going to be thinking of it in this 4/4 plus 3/16 way, but it is a start, and you'll at least be able to count it. So let's just have a try at counting along to the drum beat from that riff in 1916 at the 3 different speeds. And bear in mind that there's a counting of 4 here, so we're not having to count 1916 for the actual counting. So we'll try first of all just counting with all of the subdivisions in there, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 5E, or 1 to 3 on the end, and then try taking out the 16th notes in there, because you don't want to be counting 1E and a 2E and a 3, it just gets too much. So really what you want to be doing is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3. Just counting those little 16th notes on the end. So let's have a listen to that. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 5E and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So that was a slow tempo of 114 beats per minute. Now let's try 134. And at this speed, you'll see what I mean about the subdivisions, about how it can just be really difficult to count them. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 1E and a 2E and a 3, 4E and a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, take it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, take it to 1, 2, 3, 4, diddler. However you want to count those 3/16ths on the end, even if you want to just count it as like a shortened quarter note, it doesn't matter. As long as you're counting the 3/16ths at the end in some way, you'll be fine. Okay, so that's a start, but in practice, we don't tend to count out time signatures necessarily in such a rigid way when we're playing them. You just have to think about how you would normally play in 4/4. It's way too much to think about when you're doing all of the subdivision. Instead, when you're playing in odd time signatures, you're more likely to work around a basic groove or set of accents that we can compare with clave in Latin music. If you can work out what the main accents are in the bar and just start with counting those, things start to become much less stressful from a counting perspective, and you'll start to feel the time way more naturally. And we'll see this particularly in the 21/16 that we're going to be covering in a minute. So let's just work through the notes in there, and I'm just going to build up a few notes at a time. So the whole thing sounds like this. So that's the whole bar. We begin, remember this is in D minor, we begin on the D at the 5th fret of the A string, slapped. Then we pop that B up there at the 4th fret of the G string, and we hammer on to the C at the 5th fret. Okay, and it's a 8th note to 16th note rhythm, so dum ticka, or one ander, one ander. And then we have this slide up from the G to the A, 5th fret to the 7th fret on the D string, okay? 1 and a 2. Next we play the D again, 5th fret of the A string, and this is on the A of that second beat, so this is the last 16th note there, so 1 and a 2E and A. 1 and a 2E and A. Next, for the third quarter note beat, we've got a 16th note rest, and then this pop on the A at the 7th fret of the D string, and then we pull off down to the G at the 5th fret, and then down to the open string. Okay, so you need both fingers there, ready, and then pull off down to the open string. Okay, so. Okay, so I would actually use the pinky and the index finger for fretting that move. Next, for the fourth quarter note beat, we have 2 8th notes, D and C. So 5th fret A string, and then the 5th fret on the G string. So all of that together. Then for that final 3/16 notes in the bar, we have our pull-off move again. Okay, so A, G, D, 7th fret, 5th fret, and open string, all on the D string, okay? And it's going to be popped as well. If you listen carefully in there, you can hear the snap on there. So, all of that together. And that's the whole bar. So that's our 3/16 notes at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. That's there. So obviously this is a pretty tricky line, so you want to start out as slow as you need to, focusing on good rhythm in there and, you know, pretty much cleanliness of technique, you know, the muting and that. And remember that 3/16 note move at the end with the pull-off, once you play that, you're straight back in at the beginning of the line. There's no gaps there, there's no pause at all. So just a stream of 16th notes, A, G, D, and then hitting down on the downbeat for the D. So. Okay, so let's try that at a slow tempo of 114 beats per minute. Next, let's try a little quicker, 124 beats per minute. And finally, here it is at 134 beats per minute. Okay, now let's ramp up the difficulty with the second verse riff. This is in 21/16 and sounds like this. And I'm actually going to read along with this one just to make sure that I get it. So now we know that 19/16 is 4/4 plus 3/16 notes tagged on the end. So what is 21/16? Well, you could think of it as 5/4 with a bar of 1/16, but that would be a little silly. Or you could think of it as 4/4 with a bar of 5/16 on the end. However, neither of those counts will really help with this riff because it's subdivided quite awkwardly. So I tend to count this 21 subdivided into its main accents of 9, 8, and 4. Now, on the face of it, that doesn't help Matt as much because there's still long streams of numbers to count. But when we break those smaller divisions up a little more into smaller subdivisions, it all starts to make more sense. So when we get into the smaller groupings, I'm thinking 3/16, then 3/8. So that's 9/16, so that's the 9. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's the 3/16 at the start, 1, 2, 3, and then we've got 3/8 notes, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay? A lot easier when you think of it that way. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 if you thought of it as 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then for the group of 8, I'm thinking of a single quarter note phrase of 8th note to 16th note, so that's 1 and a, 1 and a, okay? And that second 16th note in there becomes the first of 3 offbeat 16th notes. So 1 and a to E and A. So 1 and a to E and A. So when I put the downbeat on the end, on beat 3, we have 1 and a to E and A. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so if you can get that by ear, it makes a little bit more sense. So, ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. So I mentioned it was a 9, an 8, and a 4. Well, the 4 is just 2 8th notes. And we've already hit the downbeat for the first one, so we're just adding on another 8th note. So all in all, that becomes ba, 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 ba. And as you might be able to tell there, remember 8 and a 4 equals 12. It's actually a bar of 3/4. 12 16th notes is 3/4. So when you think of it like that, you can just think of this as a bar of 9/16 and a bar of 3/4. So I didn't mention it, I didn't describe it like that to begin with, because when you're talking of 21/16 and this occurs halfway through the bar, it's a little bit hard to think like that, but that is in effect what we've got. So ba 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 ba. So now let's try putting all of that together. So our 9 phrase was, and then we had the 3/4 basically. So when we put it all together, That's the rhythm. That's that kind of clave that I was talking about. They're the accents. So you really want to get that into your head, and be able to count that along with the drum beat before you even start with the notes, because the bass line works around those accents. It's actually outlining those accents and then putting things in around it. If you can't clap it, you certainly ain't going to be able to play it. So let's try clapping that at a slow tempo of 114 beats per minute. Okay, so the thing to be aware of with this is those three big accents. So we've got 1, 2, 3. The 3/16 is just, leading into the 3/8. So 1, 2, 3. Ba, ba, 1, 2, 3. Those are the ones that you really want to hang on to. You can keep your bearings quite well when you hear that ba, ba, ba. So, okay, ba. And then you've got the 2 right at the end. Again, that's something that you can cling on to keep your bearings. So now let's work through the notes in that riff. And what we're going to do is learn the second bar first. Each of the bars here works around a theme and the basic accents, but the second bar is probably the most stripped down and easy to learn, basically. So if you can get that one down, then the variations around it make a lot more sense. So we begin on a D, 5th fret of the A string, which we play twice. That's an 8th note and a 16th note rhythm. Then we've got the C, D up on the top, 5th and 7th frets, G string, both popped. Then we have a slapped ghost note on the A string. So that C, D and the ghost note, that's our kind of 3/8 bit there. They're the 3 main accents. So what you can do with this is just learn that bit first and then just run it round. So that's the 9/16 part of it. Next we have the 8 and the 4, or 3/4 bar, which sounds like this. Okay, so we've got the 2 Ds there. Again, exactly the same as the first part, so 8th note and 16th note. And then we've got 2 hits on the C up there at the top. So popped again, so that's the 5th fret of the G string. And then we come down and we can hit that as a ghost note again. So, but then instantly we come back in with the D and the C, so slap the A string and then the G string, so 5th fret on both, for the 2 at the end. So let's put both of those together. That's the whole bar. And you want to take this as slow as you have to. Even that could be way too quick if you're struggling with this rhythm, because like I said, this is a hard bass line to play. We're in a time signature that you were just not going to see very often at all. In fact, if ever. There's not many songs in 21/16, and especially played like this. So, take this as slow as you need to. So you want to practice that bar in isolation and then just build up speed, and then you could practice that on its own with the backing track. So let's try that at 114 beats per minute. So now let's look at the other bars in there. We'll start with bar 1. It's pretty much the same as bar 2, but we've got a little hammer on. So first part of it's exactly the same. When we get to that pop on the C in the second half, second time we hit it, we have a hammer on to the D. So then same last part of it with the ghost note, D, and then the pop on the C. So, and this is why it's worth learning the second bar first, because if you were to start with that one and then think, okay, well the second bar is going to be without the hammer on, that can be quite tricky to do. If you've learned that second bar first, all you've got to do is put that hammer on in there. But even then, it's still not that easy, and it is really easy to lose your bearings with this. So now let's put bars 1 and 2 together. So we have for the third bar, we've got a little bit of a change in the rhythm at the start. So we have, so instead of the 2 Ds and then jumping up to the C, we've got 3 hits on the D. So instead of the C, we're hitting the D down on the bottom. Then we have C and then C and hammer onto the D. So the second half of the bar is pretty much the same as those first 2 bars, but we've got a pop on the last 2 notes. So, okay, so instead of this time we've got, so all of that bar. So here's the first 3 bars. For the 4th bar, we start with the following. So instead of the C, D ghost note, we've got D, C, D, all popped. Then we have, so we've got the 2 Ds again on the bottom. Then D, C, hammer on. Then low string, and then we hit the 2 notes on the D up at the top. Okay, so all of that bar. So all of that bar. So now let's try those 4 bars together. And finally, we have a 9/16 bar to finish off proceedings, which is simply, so it's just like the beginning accents in the bar. We've got the 2 Ds there, and then those 3 hits, so the 3/8 that I was describing it as. So that's 1, 2, 3 on the C, 5th fret of the G string. Okay? So now all of that with the 9/16 at the end. So start out really slowly with this one. The riff is really tricky to get your head around, even if you're pretty experienced with progressive music and odd time signatures. Remember to focus. This is a real test of concentration. Keep thinking of the accent at all times and build up speed only when you feel confident with the line. So let's try with the track at 114 beats per minute. Now let's try at 124 beats per minute. And now let's try full speed 134 beats per minute. Finally, let's look at the guitar solo section. It's a 1-bar groove in 1916 and it sounds like this. Okay. So this riff takes place under a pretty long guitar solo, and it's a real test of concentration because you've got to play that 1 bar round and round for ages, while Vinnie Colauita plays around the bar in every way that you can imagine. So here the bar is subdivided pretty much into a bar of 3/4 and a bar of 7/16. Now that might sound a little tricky to count, but it's actually not too bad, especially after the chaos of that 21 in the second verse. Instead of just counting it first, this time I'm just going to build up the riff slowly, note by note. So this time we're in G minor and we begin on a G, 3rd fret of the E string. Then we've got this hammer on from the A to the B flat there, 2nd fret to 3rd fret on the G string. So I'm popping the first note and then hammering on, so it's all slap again. So, and it's 8th notes to 16th notes. 1 and a. Then we hit the low G again, and now we have another 8th note to 16th note rhythm. So this time we've got ghost notes and then the G again on the last 2 16th. So 1 and a 2 and a. 1 and a 2 and a. Next we pop a B flat at the 3rd fret of the G string on the E of beat 3. So it's the 2nd 16th note, so 3E. So we've got 1 and a 2 and a 3E. Okay? So it's all offbeat 16th notes there. Now, there is actually another ghost note to put in here before the little 7 bit at the end, but we'll miss it for now because it's going to lead into that, so it's easier to get this bit first. So let's look at the 7. Now, the way that you would normally look at 7/16, 7/8, things like that, it's kind of in a half-time way. So you could count 7 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, when it's 7/16, it's going to be going pretty quick, but, you know, that's a little bit hard on the old gob, right? So what you can actually do is take those 7 notes and then just count it half-time. So if you think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you were to count that kind of half-time, you'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, with no and on the end. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now take the ands out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you go. That's an easy way of counting quick 7s. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you can just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll hear that all the time, you know, in progressive rock songs, when you get that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, you know, YYZ, all that kind of stuff. That's how a lot of people count 7/16 and 7/8. So, using that way of counting, this 7/16 we can count as... So, we've got G, 3rd fret of the E string, then B flat, C, 3rd fret, 5th fret on the G string. So that's a 1, 2, 3, and then for the ending 16th note, the old 4 there, we're going to hit a ghost note. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, which then when we come back into the start of the bar, we have 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so if you know how to count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's really simple. And then you're back in. So let's put all of that together, and we'll also add the ghost note leading into the 7, so it's just a 16th note leading in, which is going to sound like this. So the final ghost note in there, where we have that 7, that's incorporating those 3 16th notes I talked about when we were counting 1916 earlier on. And it helps, you know, that ghost note at the end, leading back in, it helps to count that little 1, 2, 3 at the end. So there we have that 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so from a technique perspective, the only bit here that could really throw you is when we play the G and then the hammer on from the A to the B flat there. I mean, there's many, many ways you could play it, but what I like to do here, it just feels natural, or more natural for me, is to hit that G there, the low G, with the, fret it with the 2nd finger, the middle finger, and then I play the A there with the index finger and hammer on with the pinky. And also use the palm of the hand to mute off the E string as you do that. You'll probably find that that's a little bit easier than playing with the index finger, then shifting the index finger up and trying it that way. Starting on that 2nd finger, you're in position for that 1st finger, and because the other fingers, you know, just the way that it works out, I always find because of the distance in terms of the frets there, it helps bringing that pinky down. You can use any finger that you want for the hammer on, really, but I just find it sits nicely with the pinky. So let's build up the speed on that. as always, let's try with the backing tracks. So let's try 114 beats per minute. Now let's try 124 beats per minute. And now let's try full speed, 134 beats per minute. Okay, so that's Keep It Greasy. Like I said, I'm a complete Zappa obsessive, so lessons like this just become a joy for me to do, even though it's stupidly long. So let me know if you want any more Zappa breakdowns in the comments. Remember, the lesson material and tracks, they're all there over at Talkingbass. Just click the link in the info below. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and sign up to the Talkingbass network and membership to gain access to a massive community of like-minded bass players and a ton of bass practice resources and downloads. Okay, I'll see you next week.